Thank you very much for the invitation to be here this evening. It's a pleasure.
Oh, nobody's introduced you. Are you going to introduce
I
yourself?
can introduce myself.
That'd be just great.
Yeah. In the process of introducing myself, I'll tell you how many things in common I actually have with Chemists Without Borders. My name is Mulvihill. I did my graduate work at UC Berkeley in the College of Chemistry, and actually while I was there, the first thing that I did related to this sort of area of reaching out, making a difference through chemistry, was start an organization called Chemists for Peace. Very much in the same vein of Chemists Without Borders, the idea being that chemists as a large group have the potential to make change, and more importantly, realizing that we do chemistry in the broader context of society. I learned a lot starting that organization. It stayed a very small organization because I found that peace is a much more controversial concept than one might think at first. It's hard to really rally support around something that sounds too political. And the other part about it was, and this is something that I would encourage all of you to think about too, is that when it came to engaging chemists, they sometimes felt, especially with chemistry in the name, that they wanted to be using their specific skills, the things that they're bringing to the table, their expertise, as you had in the first slide. And on the flip side, these problems absolutely need a diverse range of people to solve them. And in order to get those in, sometimes you turn them off with the word chemistry. It's an unfortunate reality of our society, but it turns out not everyone likes chemistry. Might come as a shock to some of you in this room. I'm certainly one of those who does love chemistry, and had an opportunity to now, since Chemists for Peace, move on and help start the Berkeley Center for Green Chemistry, something that's much more focused on what chemists can do and how we can use our technical expertise to realize sustainability at the molecular level. My hope today is that I'll be able to do basically two things. Introduce the principles of green chemistry. How many of you have heard of green chemistry or the 12 principles? Excellent. So we have at least some familiarity. I won't spend too much time. I think they're actually very intuitive for both the chemist and non-chemist. And then I'll show you some examples, some technical examples of how this is applied, and I'll finish up telling you what we're doing at Berkeley right now and some of the educational resources that are available both on our campus, but also more broadly on the World Wide Web. So like I said, I see chemists, green chemistry fitting into the larger sustainability movement. Sustainability, the notion that we need to be able to provide for future generations while still providing for this generation, is really important and something that's gaining hold across disciplines, across areas. Green chemistry is doing that same thing, but at the molecular level. So how do you make chemicals that are safer, that are less depleting, that are more efficient? And this is a small group, so stop me at any time. If I say anything, if you have any questions, feel free to hop right in. This is a brief timeline of green chemistry, sort of the term, how it came about. It actually started back in the early 1990s with a couple of organic chemists at the EPA. So it kind of started on the regulatory side of things, people looking for a way to carry out pollution prevention. So in 1990, the Pollution Prevention Act was passed, and the idea was how can we, instead of cleaning up messes at the end, which is what we've traditionally done, think about into-the-pipe engineering controls for our pollution, for things like that. How do you bring it back to the earlier stages of product development? That idea caught on. In 1996, the first award in green chemistry, presidential award, was offered. These are still going on today. The first book about green chemistry came in 1998, and then you got a journal starting shortly after that. And ACS adopts the Green Chemistry Institute in 2001, and more recently, this has spread beyond the world of chemistry to the world of politics, and you see green chemistry legislation introduced here in California, but also in Minnesota, Michigan, Maine, Massachusetts, a number of places, and the idea here is how do we get safer chemicals into our consumer products? You've heard stories about lead in children's toys, phthalates, all of these sort of things where chemistry is being associated with some sort of harm. The idea of green chemistry is, again, how do you make these consumer products, makes things for the daily life that aren't going to create the same sort of harm. So, yes?
When you said prevent the harm, you're talking about prevent the harm to the people or to the planet?
Yes, both. They're both very important. We usually put more weight on ourselves. But the idea, and I'll get there in just a second, is that we are thinking about this in a systems perspective.
Okay.
Absolutely. So you want things, and in fact, often the two are related. Things that are more biodegradable are also less likely to get into your body.
Exactly.
So you're doing right by the environment at the same time you're doing right by your fellow human. And that's really one of the main take-home points here.
Okay.
So what do chemists do? We all do pretty much the same thing when it comes to making things. We take materials, we run reactions with them, and we make various products. Doesn't matter if I'm talking to any group. If you think about what would you want us to use? If you were just thinking, if I could tell a chemist what to use, what sort of solvents should they use? What sort of starting materials should they use? They need to be things that are safe, that are non-toxic, that are not depleting. What sort of reactions should you run? They need to be energy efficient. They need to be efficient with the materials they use. What sort of products versus byproducts do you want to get out? They should be mostly product, not a lot of waste per generated. This is the basis of green chemistry. It's a lot just intuition, elegant chemistry. So this is basically where the term, and when you hear the term green chemistry, this is often where it's coming from. These two gentlemen, Paul Anastas and John Warner, wrote this book in '98 that lays out 12 principles. So how do you meet these big goals of green chemistry on the ground? So they say, all right, here's the 12 ways to do it. And I do suggest, as a starting place, this book, because it does do a nice job of laying things out. And I'm going to summarize a little bit because I have a limited amount of time. I say all those open circles look like being efficient. So catalysts help you be efficient. Avoiding extra steps in your synthesis, avoiding derivatization helps you be efficient. Atom economy is the notion that don't just think about yield, think about all of the stuff you put in versus what you come out. It's about efficiency. And thinking about how to look at things in real time so you don't come back years later going, oh, this is the problem that we created with arsenic.
Yes.
You want to be doing that in real time. You want to be finding these problems in a more efficient manner. The dark circles are all about safety. Safety both for us and for the environment. So design safer chemical products, less hazardous, safer solvents, reaction conditions that degrade after use, and that minimize the potential for accidents. So again, all of that has to do with safer chemistry. The one that I have highlighted that doesn't really fit into either of those is this notion of renewable feedstocks. This is the way that green chemistry is a little bit forward-looking. It's asking chemists to really stop just thinking of themselves as being tacked on to the petroleum industry. 97% of what we make as chemists comes from the petrochemical industry. I see some disagreement in the front.
Oh yeah, I do disagree with that. Anyway.
With moving on, or this is good. I encourage disagreement. But this is the notion that we should think about where else we can get things. I actually think there's good ways to do that and bad ways to do that. It's not a guarantee that because it comes from a plant that it's actually safer or more efficient. So that doesn't come beyond all the other ones. That's one in a whole series that tells you to be safe and efficient. So sacrificing safety and efficiency for the sake of a renewable feedstock is not worthwhile.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
And so it does fit into a broader context that's very important to remember. A great example in my mind is right now in Brazil. They're taking sugar cane, taking that sugar, turning it to ethanol, turning that ethanol back into ethylene and making polyethylene. They call it green plastic. Is that plastic any different than polyethylene made from petroleum? Absolutely not.